Hey, folks, good evening. Welcome back to our Zoom daily with Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz to a realistic map of meaning, starting a new week, April 30th. And yeah, this is getting very interesting as he's explaining his 199 mitzvot that have branches to Noahide code. And it's just exciting to hear the explanations and how they may actually be useful for people to grow and develop. And so it's just a joy to have a rabbi share this with us. So let's just jump right in. Shalom, Rabbi Schwartz. So good to be with you, sir. I'm going to turn the class over to you. And yeah, it's so good to be with you again.
Thank you, Dan. Good to be with you. Welcome, Rabbi Jones. And I'm going to share the screen here with this list. And tonight we're on the sixth category of Noahide laws. We're starting this category. There's only 15 of them. They're all on the screen, I believe. And then we're going to go to the next category. And this is the one category that's phrased in the positive. All the others are don't murder, don't steal, don't commit adultery, and then among those don'ts there are a bunch of positives. Here, the category head is a positive to set up a justice system, set up a court to adjudicate society and adjudicate the rules that the Torah introduces. Not having said that, just so happens that the first one I have is a negative, but um, I'm going to look for the ones that says do it in positive. I look down and it says all of them are don'ts. So we're going to have to say the number 13, which is the positive one. That'll stand for all of them. So maybe I should reorder them. You know, some things you don't think about until you go to teach it. So, I'm not going to be that familiar here because I've never been a judge. I've gone to court, both the secular court and a Jewish court upon occasion. I've been a witness there, and I've been a counselor there, so I have some experience with it. But normally, personally, on everybody's level, usually you're approaching a judge as a rabbi, as someone who can guide you in the thing. Because if you have a question about how to behave in a certain circumstance, you don't necessarily have a litigant against you. You have someone that you go to, and these rules would apply to every rabbi, everyone who's judging for someone else what to do. All these would apply. So we're going to start with the first one. Do not appoint an incompetent judge. And now that would fall on the judges themselves, because that's the way the title of judge is transferred, is that you have to become a competent scholar, not only a competent scholar, but also a righteous scholar, a person who obeys the law and keeps the law and is concerned for the law. And then you also know the laws and how they apply. And then someone of that caliber that's recognized would give you a title that you're a rabbi. You're now a judge. You're competent, and that gives you the authority to act on that behalf. There's actually three stages that we practice today. One is just a leader, someone who knows everyday life and can study the books and figure out what, if there's a question of what to do, how to do that. The next level is someone who's studied how a little more. The biggest area there is how to slaughter kosher animals and birds, and they even can go to school for that. So that's another level. And then the final level is someone who can sit on a financial issue and decide who owes who money. So those are the three areas that are given over today. But you don't have to have somebody that high up in the last category to go ask them, what do I do if, something happened in the kitchen and the utensil may not be kosher anymore, or I did something on, Passover, I have to get rid of the plummets. How do I do that? Stuff like that. So you can go to a regular rabbi. Okay, so that's, but the judge himself has a duty not to give over the title to someone who's incompetent. Secondly, do not pervert justice, obviously, not to give the wrong ruling, even inadvertently, but certainly knowingly. And then, as we often find, do not pervert justice for a convert or an orphan that change there because they don't have standing in the community, so there's a greater fear that you would take advantage of them and a rule against them because they can really get back at you. So there's a special consideration there. Although the same law would apply, where we'll see a little later more openly that you can't pervert it in their behalf either, because you feel bad for them. So even though they're really in the wrong, you're going to give a different verdict just to help them out. That also is forbidden. The next one is do not disobey a Supreme Court ruling. Here the Supreme Court is, which we don't have anymore today, but there was once sitting when we had the temple, we had a Supreme Court. Actually, there is some movement to try and reconvene the Supreme Court, but you have to have, because we've lost a chain of command, so to speak, because Moshe was the first rabbi. He gave over he conferred the title of rabbi to Yoshua, Joshua, and so the other elders of the time, and then they to others, and so on, and that's how the rabbinic system got going, and everybody had to make sure that their students that they assigned the title to were competent, but it had to be a personal. At that time there was no three stages. It was you knew everything. If you want to become a judge, I'll call you a judge when you know everything, all 613, every aspect of it, and there was no differences of levels of competence. But with exile and the loss of the temple, so on, so they had to introduce these levels, etc. We don't have somebody at the highest level that knows everything anymore. But the idea is that if the whole nation gets together, if we can find all the competent rabbis, all the great scholars, and get them together, and they agree that they can convene the court, then that would be by the strength of their own, really based on the strength of the public recognizing them, they would become a new Supreme Court. So that's a time for the future. We haven't had that happen yet, because the Jewish people are very, very, very careful not to let someone lord it over them. Sanhedrin, yeah, that would be to get a Sanhedrin. Some people have tried, but it hasn't worked out yet. So, but once the Sanhedrin has issued a ruling, this says you're not allowed to disobey that, which means that's the one that gives the status of a Torah law to a rabbinic law. That even though God didn't say this, but because the Supreme Court said this, so now you have to obey because God said, listen to the Supreme Court. Okay, do not take a bribe. Obviously, everybody would agree with that. Here's an interesting thing: do not take a bribe, even if you would have ruled that way anyways. Once you take a bribe, you're no longer able to adjudicate on that case. I remember a case once. My Rabbi Yaakov Weinberg, someone came to him. Somebody was going to. It was set up that he was going to judge a case. There was two parties that were, and this one guy, he came to him and he brought a present to the house. You're a rabbi, my son. He had some cover story, so I just wanted to give you this. So he took it. So when we said, Rabbi, how can you take it? You're going to be a judge on the case. It's like a bribe. He says, I know. He says, how often do I get a chance to refuse a bribe? So I didn't want to just refuse to take it. I wanted to let it sit there for a while so I could give it back to him and fulfill this command that I'm not taking a bribe. So that was an unusual situation, unusual reaction to this situation. It doesn't often happen. Do not fear a powerful litigant. This is interesting. If you're a judge and you're asked to adjudicate, you can refuse to adjudicate. I'm busy. I don't have time. I don't feel competent. This case, whatever. But once you accept the case and you find out that one of the litigants has got henchmen or they've got levers of power and so on, you're not allowed to flinch. You have to do your job and rule the way you feel is the most just, and God rely on God to take care of you. You're not allowed to relinquish the case. And so don't be afraid that they're going to put pressure on you. And certainly the next one, do not favor the powerful in judgment. Don't give them any benefit because they are powerful. By the same case, let me skip to the two down. Do not favor the poor in judgment. You can't do the opposite either. Somebody's poor and you don't have to worry about them. No, I'm sorry, you want to favor them because they nobody's standing up for them. You want to, this is what I was saying about earlier with the convert or the orphan. In case you want to do this to just help them out, no, you cannot do that. Once you're the judge, you have to rule whatever the law says should be the case. You have to adjudicate like that. The one in the middle that I skipped, do not disfavor the wicked in judgment. You can't, I can't find the witnesses to judge against this guy, or the guy missed something. But you know what? I know everybody knows this guy's guilty, so we'll just ignore that. Cannot do that. You've got to administer justice the way it's presented to you. God's going to look after the rest. We have the saying that God stands with the justices in the court, and his presence can be felt. And I had the case like that where I think I said once the story that I appeared in court as a counselor on one side. It was all set up beforehand. Everybody knew what was going to happen. This person wanted to convert, and they were just once the first stage of accepting his application. But somehow when we stood up there, they asked a question, and somehow the whole tenor of the court started to go against him. Even though it had been arranged, everybody knew what was happening, and they were quite in favor of going through with it. It just turned soured, yeah. And the guy asked, "This was all set up. What's going on?" And the head judge said, "God stands with us. God, something happened here. God's influence was felt. He didn't want this to happen. They would just have to go with what it was. I mean, it's not that they made it up. They had a reason. Some reason was stated, but it was surprising that everything had been set up beforehand, and just another opinion reared its head and won the day. So, and the answer was God's there. So you can sometimes see it. Going down to number 10, do not hear one side in the absence of the other. When there's two litigants, the judge is not allowed to let anybody speak up until both sides are there. Even if you can disappear. Yeah, even just being the first to say his case is considered an advantage and not allowed. So that both have to be there. Number 11, do not accept a sitter as a witness. People often forget this when they're reading the Torah about the punishments and how it's accepted. You have to have two witnesses, and they both have to be upstanding citizens. They have to be known. They have to be reliable. They have to be God-fearing. And if they are not, you can't accept them, even if they you have every reason to believe them. But because they are known to create sin, they're not known to behave properly in other instances, you can't accept them here. Of course, the next one, do not testify falsely. Any witness, even if they are God-fearing and so on, but they have to be very careful that they're saying the absolute to the best of their knowledge of the truth and nothing else, and can't make up anything or guess. Here's the positive: adjudicate financial questions. The court has every judge has the duty to adjudicate financial questions. And 14 and 15, do not cut your skin nor divide your community. This is an interesting one. The language of the Torah can be considered, do not cut your skin. And in that case, that's talking about on the occasion of a death, a tragedy in the family. And it was the nature of people who are not aware of God. They would damage themselves. This is such a tragedy. They would damage themselves, not understanding that God's running the world, and things happen, and God makes judgments. And if you're left here, so you've got a job to do. You have to accept God's judgment. You can't ever consider that life is over or that the worst tragedy has happened and it's no good for anybody. And I wish I was dead. That's not a Jewish attitude, because God's leaving you alive. You have things to do, and God's running the world. So even though it is a tragedy, it is something you're suffering with. You cannot even exhibit um, a feeling of lost and despair. You can mourn, but not go too far. That's one meaning of that. But there's an other equally valid meaning of that sentence, and that is that when you have a community with a court set up, so and then another rabbi comes along and says, well, I'm also competent. I'll set up an opposing court or a competitive court. You're not allowed to do that unless the community is so large that basically it is two communities. Then yeah, then you have to establish a court in every district. Like, it's a good word, but otherwise you can't divide the community by setting up a new thing. That can be dicey sometimes because not a court, but people come along and set up extra congregations. And like where I live, there's quite a few congregations. And personally, I'm not saying they're in violation of this idea, but personally, I think that they're gone too far, because there's so many. Everybody wants their own flavor, and we have a saying that with a multitude of people is the honor of the king. So the more people that are coming together, that's an honor of the king, and that's an issue. So I acknowledge the issue, and nothing goes perfectly, and so but I do want to present both sides. The last item is, do not take a widow's garment as loan security, and I kind of covered this in the previous lesson, previous category rather, but here it's the court that is addressed here. That someone who lent money to a widow, and so they didn't take a security, and now it's due, the loan is due. She has no money to pay back. So he takes her to court and says, like, I got to get the money back, and they owe me money. So the court's okay. So get witnesses and so on, and arrive at a verdict that yes, she owes the money, but she hasn't got to pay. So the court is entitled to take from other people loan security, and they would be entitled to take from the widow too. But usually, widows, I mean, the general situation is widows do not have too much, certainly in those days. So the only thing you're going to find is as an extra garment, maybe a fine coat or something that she uses to maintain the little dignity, and that's worth something. And so might want to take that as security. No, you cannot. You cannot take, because she's too far down the honor totem pole, feeling too bereft of the dignity that to take that. So the court is not allowed to give her garment over as a loan security. Something else maybe, but not that. So those are the rules for the court. Now I want to go into the next category, which is don't eat limb of live animal. And I'm going to read this. Current Google searches often limit the mitzvah do not eat the limb from a live animal to an injunction against cruelty to animals. That's what you'll find. Some wish to stretch the mitzvah to encompass harmonizing with nature. I've seen that in Google searches. I don't agree. Not with the harmonizing with nature idea, and not even with the idea that it prohibits animal cruelty. Rambam doesn't seem to agree either, because he never mentions anything about animal cruelty when discussing this mitzvah. Every normal person is against animal cruelty, but I don't think that is what the mitzvah is about. If it was, the Torah should have simply said, don't be cruel to animals. That would have covered a lot more ground than the eating limb phrase does. Furthermore, the eating is disconnected from the cruelty. Once the limb is cut off, it's too late. The animal has already suffered. What difference does it make whether or not someone eats the resulting meat? Someone may have injured my prized cow without my permission or knowledge, and now I further lose by not being able to eat the meat? Because of these questions, I consider this mitzvah the category headliner for others dealing with animals that seem arbitrary. In other words, for other mitzvahs that deal with animals and seem arbitrary. I submit that their primary benefit for us is to practice a most important conviction, namely, we will always fare better by following God's instructions, even though we don't understand them. I acknowledge that this advocates blind obedience, which is often not a good thing. It is necessary, though, when understanding is out of reach and wrong moves can be very costly. This is often true with medical issues. We don't understand what's going on, so we blindly follow doctor's orders. It should not surprise us that the same can be true with spiritual issues. Just like we need assurances that the doctor is competent, the same is true here. That is why I elaborated on the reliability of Torah instructions in chapters 10 to 11. When I say that 199 mitzvahs pertain to non-Jews, I don't mean that they are obligatory to everyone. Just like there are many mitzvahs among the 613 that a Jew can choose whether or not to perform, so too many of the 199 on my list are optional. I include them because they appear to offer a benefit. An example is the mitzvah of shooing away a mother bird before taking her eggs or chicks. This is found in Deuteronomy 22, 6, 7. These mitzvahs, number 194 and 195 below, apply. Those numbers wouldn't be valid anymore because the table starts at 1 in each group. Originally, I had them numbered from 1 through 199. So, but those mitzvahs apply only when a person finds a bird nest in the wild, not when he raises birds for food. He need not, in the end, take the eggs or chicks. He need only shoo away the mother to perform these mitzvahs. On the other hand, he can decline the opportunity altogether and just walk on by without penalty, but also without entitlement to the long life and other benefits the Torah promises. I know someone who performed this mitzvah and did indeed receive many of the benefits promised. Too early to tell about the long life. I can't guarantee he got a new house. He did very well business-wise. Is healthy. Has wonderful children, etc. One of the benefits is long life. He's too young to say that happened too. I can't guarantee everyone will receive all the promises because their future errors might override the promises. Sort of like when someone bets on a high-flying stock that loses and wipes out the previous earnings of a blue chip investment. Barring errors, the benefits will arrive from shooing away the mother bird, although they will never be traceable to the mitzvah of shooing away a mother bird. God will just make it happen while remaining invisible. The takeaway message from this mitzvah is that we can follow instructions and benefit from them even when we don't understand them. The Torah is revealing what God will do for us if we follow the instruction. The benefit may follow simply because we trusted revelation and did what God asked, even though we didn't understand it. There's no hint that this is the only truth for a Jew. Therefore, I include it in my list of 199 in this last category. Do not eat the limb from a live animal. And the others I conclude are as follows. Do not eat meat taken from a live animal. That's the first. Do not, and this is, by the way, so in other words, you have a duty, a non-Jew has a duty to make sure the animal is totally dead, stop moving. The Jews have an interesting wrinkle on this. Because the Jewish people have the mitzvah of ritually slaughtering an animal, and
Right.
like I told you the story about the chicken that came running after me after it was ritually slaughtered. So an animal, the muscle, the tension, the nerves there, they cause an automatic twitching and so on. So the animal could still be twitching after it's been properly slaughtered. So for a Jew, that's the once it's slaughtered ritually, it's considered dead. There's no chance of it coming alive again. it's considered dead. And I mean, for many wounds, it's considered that there's no chance of it's coming alive. But when a Jew ritually slaughters an animal, it's considered dead, and they can immediately, if they wished to, normally we don't, but if they wish to start butchering the animal, there would be no penalty for not eating the meat after it's been ritually slaughtered. For a non-Jew, though, they don't have that mitzvah of ritually slaughtered, so they have to wait, by their standards, for the animal to stop moving altogether. They want to be completely dead. And then,
Right, Rabbi. And so myself, for instance, when it comes to say chicken, I don't buy like legs or wings because they could be cut off while the animal's still alive. But I will eat a lot of boneless chicken breast because there's no way for the animal to be alive and harvest that. So just imagine how much chicken you get at the typical grocery store where a limb's kind of been hacked off independently, or a wing. And so, yeah, for that reason, I generally don't buy those parts.
for it. I'm fascinating, and that's very righteous. That's especially because you're doing it as just to be sure that um, you're not
Well,
aware.
I thought about it, and I thought, how can I know if it's been ethically farmed or and chicken farms now I think are like at 4.5 weeks they can send them to.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah.
So that's a very righteous rule to follow. I hear you, and I'm impressed. The that you do that. The what was going
Yeah, not that I have an aversion to
yeah,
chicken
yeah,
wings or
right.
thighs.
So, but you're being careful to follow, and it's part of the thing is that it's it's not like you didn't cause any extra cruelty or anything. That's the point I'm getting at, is that this seems to be just a non-rational. Like, we're not given the rationale behind it, because um, the fact that the limb was cut off from the animal while it was still alive is you can't tell after the fact, and there's no difference in it. So and now it's done. So the fact, but that's what God said. So that's what you do. Fantastic. Um, here's
Yeah,
a.
at least I thought about it and made sure,
I think
to
you're.
avoid it. Yeah, at least if I'm buying from the supermarket chicken breasts, I know that the animal has been completely killed.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and I'm impressed. Uh, if anybody wants to be careful about that, I would. That's a very good uh, behavior to listen. Right? Yeah. The next one is, do not eat the sinew of the thigh vein. Now that's one of the early mitzvahs in the Torah, and that goes back to the struggle that Jacob had with the angel, wrestling overnight, and that's where the name Israel came from. One who wrestles with God, because he wrestled the whole night with this angel, and the story goes that at the end of the fight, um, he walked away with a limp, and right then and there, God says, therefore, the Jewish people do not eat the sinew of the thigh vein, um, just to commemorate that. Well, um, it's not, it doesn't say not kosher. It's only, it's the other sinews are okay. The rest of the meat is okay. It's only one particular part. So it's a very unusual mitzvah. It's sort of a commemoration. I can understand remembering the story. I think the story applies to all people, that there was, as I say at the beginning of my book, that anybody who struggles with God really is entitled to membership of some kind in Israel, because that's God is a struggle. It's he's given us some many rules and personality clashes, relationships to form, and challenges in life, and they're all designed to help us grow. And it's certainly worthwhile to remember this battle that Yaakov had to battle with an angel from on high, with a particular divine mission, but an opposite divine mission won the day, and that's the nature of creation. So it's worth remembering, and God said we should remember it. So why shouldn't? Why couldn't everybody? Again, as an option. So I included it on my list. Um, okay, so we have another 8 to go, but we're out of time tonight. So I guess we'll be able to finish this off tomorrow night with a new lead, and we'll discuss what happens from there on.
Robbie, have you got any questions for the rabbi?
I am good. Uh, yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Sweet. Hopefully you got something out of it.
Oh yes. I I saw an odd video where a guy drew a line in the dirt and held the chicken down.
Oh yeah, you sent me
Uh,
that. I can look at that.
yeah. Did you have any opinions on that,
I want to
Rabbi?
look at the video first, and then I'll get back to you on that, and maybe we can
Okay.
discuss that next time.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
That's it.
That was interesting.
Yeah, you
Just
don't want to have any voodoo.
No.
see the video.
No.
Let me see the video.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. So, yeah, Rabbi, I will send you a new Zoom connection for the month of May tomorrow, and we'll be back tomorrow nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and that'll be Zoom Daily with Rabbi Shlomo Schwartz to a realistic map of meaning, and hopefully you folks are enjoying it. Feel free to like the video, share it on social media. We appreciate that. Till tomorrow. Bye for now.
Good night.